We would never make fun of you, Wendy Dial.
Of
Good
course you would.
evening. My name is Rashard Tortorello with another episode of the Patriot Sentinel podcast. And I have one of my best friends, Wendy, not Montgomery Dial, on the show tonight to discuss what's been perplexing the state of Oklahoma when it comes to primaries. So, Wendy and I have been crisscrossing Oklahoma for but the last year, and our job was to go from county to county to discuss State Question 836 or the open primary scam. Uh, the Oklahoma GOP or members of the Oklahoma GOP sued the promoters of 836. It's been sitting at the Supreme Court until a couple days ago, where they released their opinion and declared that the gist statement met all the qualifications. So, for those that don't understand how petitions are run and how they're conducted and put together, one of the elements for a petition is to tell the person that they want to sign the petition why they're signing the petition. And so the challenge was on what's called the gist statement, which is the very first thing signers would see so they would understand why they're signing this document. So they were sued, basically saying that the gist statement was insufficient. And we've been waiting since June, and they released it September 16th, a couple days ago. And not too shocked. I wasn't shocked when they released it. I did say before, Wendy, that it would pass muster, that the people behind 836 knew what they're doing, and the Supreme Court came out and said that the gist statement was sufficient, and they can go ahead and start collecting signatures. Wendy, we've been in the fight since January, right?
Right.
Bring people up to date to that fateful day in January of this year, where we listened to what was to be known as um, the state question that would kill the Republican Party.
Right. Well, you and I last November were both at the press release and the press conference for Oklahoma United, which is the group that is trying to promote State Question 836 in the open primary. So you and I understood that we needed to look at this more closely at that time. And we both had concerns about it. And so I wrote an article that's on the Restore Liberty Substack because of the things I saw in the petition. It looks like it was, at that time, it was State Question 835. They amended Section 5 of the gist, so they had to resubmit it to the Secretary of State and became State Question 836. The changes that they made for me only muddied the waters instead of clarifying the situation on the gist. It's less clear. I'm worried about it ending up in court again, potentially on a different lawsuit, because how many ways can this petition potentially go bad, Rashar? I think we've listed in our presentation several. Um, but in January, after they refiled it, you had me on the show at some point to talk about this and talk about how the open primaries could potentially lead to, at least this petition could lead to issues with the national popular vote. You do your part of the presentation and I do my part of the presentation. But then we got together, started traveling the state, started talking to GOP meetings, Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, to try to get the word out there that this petition was coming and that we did not need this in Oklahoma. And what was buried in it, outside of just the fact that we do not need jungle primaries in Oklahoma, we don't need to California our Oklahoma. You and I have been in meetings with various conservative groups, and then also the Oklahoma GOP, which I'm now the state secretary. Um, and the state is going to get together and get our act together and also wage a campaign against this. And we won't be alone, because it's very difficult to find a legislator or just your direct rank and file GOP that we go around with county to county that's for this petition. So the lawsuit was filed
Right.
on the last day of the
Right.
challenge period. And so the challenge period, you and I were going around speaking to groups.
Right.
Then the arguments were heard in the Supreme Court. Then we had to wait. And so here we are. We've been wondering when this decision was going to come down so that we could get started on the campaign against it if necessary. And now it
Well,
looks like it's necessary.
it has become necessary.
It is
And
necessary.
for those of you who are joining, I have Wendi Dial and myself. We are discussing the Supreme Court's opinion on State Question 836 in Oklahoma, which is going to open, and what they want is to allow open primaries. And what that means is that the Democrat Party, they allow anyone to participate in their primary, independents specifically. What they want is to allow anybody to participate in the Republican primaries. And if you didn't know, Oklahoma is a closed primary state. So if they were to change this, that will allow anybody to participate in Republican primaries. And the whole the issue we have with this scheme, not only is it from California, and we know how well their elections are run and who is elected, but this would allow groups that are far left to pick our Republican candidates. And they try to chip away at Trump's reelection campaign the first time he ran. The second time he ran, landslide win. So what else can they do? Their next goal is to try to attempt to turn a red state like Oklahoma blue or purple. So we have 27 states that are run by Republican governors, 37 when Ronald Reagan left office, and they pushed his legacy for over 50 years. In order for Trump to ensure that his good policies that do well for everybody, regardless of Democrat Party affiliation, gender, if they change the composite and the makeup of the governors of our states, the red states, that it might affect the federal delegation to DC, this is their one opportunity to do it. And so Wendi and I have gone crisscrossed around the state in our presentations to inform and educate Republican voters that this is not what we want. Now, the other side has a good game. They say the nice things. They are nice, but they are deceiving the voters into signing this. Now, I believe that they may gather the signatures, and where we have to come and fight is to have and promote better ideas. Now, Wendi, let me read the gist of the opinion. The Supreme Court, they all agreed that they find the gist is not misleading insofar as it uses the term open primary to describe a primary system that the U.S. Supreme Court has previously labeled as a nonpartisan blanket primary. Now, that nonpartisan blanket primary, we have a term for it, and it's one of your favorite words. What is it?
One of my favorite words.
What is it? What is that nonpartisan blanket primary called? The other word that people will understand.
Oh, the jungle primary.
There you go. The jungle primary. And I thought that was too confusing to discuss in front of people, but the more we had our conversations, the more it became easy for them to understand. Because what exactly, Wendi, is a jungle primary? Look at Oklahoma first before you answer that question. In Oklahoma, describe how a jungle primary would look if we had open primaries today going into the November 2026 elections for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and the down ballot. So how would that look? Start with the governor's position if this system was in place.
Okay, it's very simple. Jungle primaries, open primaries, as listed in this gist. And if you read State Question 836, they specifically spell this out
Yeah.
because they want to change our Constitution to include this in our Constitution. So this is not just a statute. This would be the way Oklahoma elections are conducted from here on out. You take every single candidate that is running for that office, you put them on a single ballot with their party mark,
Mm-hmm.
okay? You put them all on a single ballot. The two candidates that get the most votes in the primary election are the two that go to the general election regardless of their party. So we could end up with two Democrats running in the general, two Republicans, a Republican and an independent, or a Republican and a Democrat, which is what we have now by law because we have closed primaries. Also, our independents and nonpartisan candidates can also be on the ballot and can also run in the general. Okay, so the jungle primary system in California, and you know this, Rashard, because this is your part of the presentation, where you tell people that regardless of what people are told, this system does not result in higher turnout, higher voter turnout. It doesn't. What it does is it results in turning red states blue. It never works the other way. It never works the other way. So, the jungle primary system, as stated in this petition, is, I think, something that would give pause to most Oklahomans if they found out that Democrats could be completely shut out of the general. Republicans could be completely shut out of the general. And if they don't fix the gist again, and nobody sued over this, but if they don't fix it again, the way it's written, it is possible that independents and nonpartisan candidates could be shut out of being on the ballot. And that's because of the way this petition amends our Constitution. Sure, we have statutes that
Right.
allow certain things, but statutes, as we've seen in Oklahoma, can easily be changed.
Right.
Titles can be stricken, wording can be snuck in. We've had this happening at our Capitol for at least, I don't know how many times it happened this session, Rashard, but I know of at least once, where they totally stripped a bill out of its language and slipped in something else when they were upset with our state superintendent of education. Uh,
Right.
so, with that said, we cannot rely on just statutes to protect our electoral system in Oklahoma. We just can't.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. For those that tuned in now, we're discussing. I have Wendi Dial, my one of my good friends. We've been crisscrossing the state of Oklahoma discussing State Question 836, the open primary system. It's a change to the way we elect our officials. Wendi, I
Yes.
think if you agree that the GOP has a lot of work before us, I think the promoters of 836 are going to get the signatures. And so, where we have to beat them, having better ideas and why 836 is a bad system to implement in a red state, but we have to educate the Republican voters and constituents before they get to the ballot box. Do you
Yes.
agree?
I do. I agree. Education is going to be key on this. Um, I agree. They're likely going to get the signatures, and we could go into the fact that we have inflated voter rolls and, duplicate signature. We have all kinds of issues with our voter rolls. So, one way or the other, the signatures will end up likely being gathered. With that said, then the question goes to the ballot. So, between now and next November, we have to have a pretty rigorous educational campaign regarding this petition and what's so dangerous about it. That includes the primary system that they want to implement into our Constitution. as well as the other changes that the petition would make to our Constitution. So this is going to be a twofold educational campaign, basically, as to why
Right.
this is a horrible idea for the state of Oklahoma, and it should never pass. If the voters really knew what was in here,
Yep.
if our elections were free and fair and clean, would never pass in this state.
You know, when we start our presentation, what do I say? The very first thing I ask, if this was in place, we might have a Kamala Harris or Tampon Tim type candidate as our
Mhm.
only choices for governor of Oklahoma. I want to switch gears to current events. Jimmy Kimmel and Charlie Kirk. The
Mm.
FCC um, made a determination that Jimmy Kimmel crossed the line by the comment he made the other night regarding Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And the news today from the Democrat side, they're saying this is cancel culture. We're going after them, um, but this is not really that. So the FCC ruled that you have a certain criteria you have to meet of decorum and civility on public broadcast airwaves. He violated that. Do you think? Do you think it was the right decision to kick him off the air? Do you think ABC made the right decision? Don't forget, Sinclair, they own a lot of stations and they refuse to air his show. And from what we have now, they will air the Charlie Kirk funeral on Saturday in that time slot. But do you think the left has gone too far in complaining and crying this time about cancel culture after what they did to us in 2020 and 2021, 22, 23, and 24?
Well, right now, as far as the FCC is concerned, there are standards that have to be met. The FCC has been around a long time. The FCC, for instance, would not allow you after a certain time period to say certain words or before a certain time period when, say, for instance, kids go to bed. They regulate obscenity. They regulate all kinds of things on our airwaves, which is perfectly legal, not a First Amendment violation. Um, I would argue that regardless of the way the FCC found or ruled on this, that private employers, if you violate your contract with them, they have a right to fire you. So I would say that the argument should be between Jimmy Kimmel and the television network. And if,
ABC.
yeah, ABC, and if they decided, I believe it was how many stations decided that they were not going to air his show anymore. What else could they do, to be honest with
Nothing.
you? What else could they do?
Look, when you call and celebrate death, this is a problem
Yeah,
with the Democrats. Not everybody, not every Democrat,
right,
not every liberal falls in this category, but the majority seem to do. But the good ones don't say anything about this. We can't live in a culture of
right.
celebrating death. Now we had
No,
a. You agree on that? So the FCC
yeah,
did the right thing. ABC did the right thing. And if you watch Tuesday's podcast, we talked about free speech with Cam. So here's
yeah,
look, I'm a free speech absolutist. Say what you want. And there's an asterisk after that. If you're an educator, college professor, pilot, doctor, public official like city council
yeah,
or the military, shut the hell up because the criteria for free speech exists in those categories. But there's a reason why, as a military member and a veteran, that we keep our opinions to ourselves because it's you, the taxpayers, that pay our salaries. And we have to have no appearances of impropriety, which means I can't say anything that might assume a taxpayer think that I might hate them as a defender of this country. And my pilots, we fly lots. I don't care what your opinions are on anything. Just fly the plane because
yeah,
Charlie Kirk and the assassination proved one thing is that words do matter. And if they disagree with you, I think it's going to be open season for Republicans. This is not going to end well. Would you want a pilot, a doctor, you're a veterinarian, like old boy up in Edmond, teacher, professor, or anybody in the public trust to hate half of their constituents?
Right.
Do I mean you am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. What I think, though, is that we have to be very careful because the First Amendment, I am a First Amendment absolutist outside of the fact you can't yell fire in a movie theater because you can hurt someone. You can't incite riots. We already do have things on the books and laws on the books. You can't threaten someone. So speech is already regulated a little bit, but we have to be very careful with political speech. I do not think that some of this stuff could be considered political speech. They try to make it political speech, but we also don't want the government regulating what they term hate speech. And we've seen this over the past several years where just plain speech with your opinion on a variety of subjects could be labeled by the left, because the right doesn't normally do this, but the left will label what you say hate speech just because they don't like what you're saying. So we cannot have that either. So we have to find the line where the government is not determining hate speech. Look at what has happened in Britain. They now have laws where if the government decides they don't like what you say and they label it hate speech, you will go to jail. So there we have to be very, very careful and monitor the situation carefully. And there is what private industry and private employers can do. They have contracts, they have clauses for moral turpitude. Teachers used to have to sign contracts, and I think it's still in contracts. Moral turpitude. You have to be careful outside of your employment what you do and say. I remember the day when they used to want to hire old spinster women for teachers. You had to be single. You
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. Hold on.
it's just the same.
Did you say
The same principle.
old what? Say that word again. I misheard you.
Spinster.
Okay. I just say school marm. They have
School
to hire
marms.
school
Okay.
marms.
Well,
There you
for us women, we call it spinsters.
go.
It's fine.
I heard sphincter. I was like, oh, wow.
Spinsters. Gee, Rashar, I don't know about you sometimes.
Well, I know a lot about you, and I'd like you to share something you shared with me the other day about your
Sure.
son
Sure.
and how you were surprised that
Yeah.
he knew who Charlie Kirk was and who he was. So you want to bring that story up and share it with the audience?
I
I thought it
do.
was cool. It was a
I
cool story.
do. I have been so involved with elections over the past few years and researching and data analysis. I've not been up on TV. I've not been watching the news. I knew who Charlie Kirk was. And I had heard him a couple of times, but I was so busy that I didn't watch him on a regular basis. We both know people involved in Turning Point, USA in Oklahoma. The young people love him, okay, in Oklahoma. And my son is completely apolitical. As a matter of fact, he says, Mom, I don't, he wishes I would get out of all this political stuff, right? He is up at university. He's 19 years old. And I've been praying for him, Rashard. We'll get into the religious and spiritual aspect here because that's who Charlie was. He was proud of his faith and unapologetic about his faith, and so am I. And my son, I've been praying for him for a while, like a lot of parents out there. And on Wednesday, and I think it was Wednesday, it was the 10th, when this news crossed, something in my spirit says, you need to call your son. You need to call him. This was before the news crossed that he had passed. I called my son. He was paying attention to the news. He had seen it. Unfortunately, he had watched the video. I tried to tell him, don't do that. It's horrible. It's something you don't need to see. And I don't know why it's even out there. Personally, I feel it's disrespectful to Mr. Kirk and to his wife and his children to have that out there. But with that said, he had watched the video and he said, Mom, I was having a really good day up until a few minutes ago, up until just now. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, well, this issue with Charlie Kirk. And I was just touched because my son was touched by Charlie Kirk and I didn't even know it. And to me, that is a testament to his reach, where he is reaching my son, my 19-year-old son, and where I'm not reaching him maybe as a parent, and we all go through that as parents, where you can't reach your child and you hope somebody with some positive influence can reach them. And I believe it's a testament to Charlie Kirk's reach that he reached my son. My son went to the vigil that his campus had on Tuesday night for Charlie Kirk. And he is just now starting out on his spiritual journey. He has confessed that his Lord and Savior is Jesus Christ. And I want to give maybe Mr. Kirk some credit for that too, because, we need good positive influences for our young men. And Charlie Kirk was that in so many ways that I am just now finding out. And I was very touched as a parent to find out that Charlie Kirk had touched my son.
Well,
So I'm
he touched
just so
hundreds of
grateful.
thousands of people, and
Yes, yes,
this story here does hit home because it's I know you, and I met both of your sons, and
yeah,
this was this was the hallmark of Charlie Kirk. He was a Christian first. He wore
right,
his faith on his sleeve, and then a conservative second. And I think the threat that he posed was to bring the word of God to campuses around the nation. And when you have a culture, I'm going to say this with tongue in cheek, of educators who have indoctrinated our colleges and our students, going back to middle school and up to college. Um, they see this as a threat. They saw him as a threat, and your son's testimony is one of hundreds of thousands of young people where parents have a hard time connecting faith, um, with their children sometimes because it's our children and it's our parents.
right,
That old saying is that, put me in a suit and send me to Paul's Valley with a briefcase makes me an expert in a different city. And sometimes we want to wish that our kids listen to what we have to say, but sometimes we find it grateful that there are people out there that are taking what we have taught them and they're continuing that message.
yes.
And that was Charlie Kirk, and he'll be missed. We know, and your son, I'm glad for him that he came to Christ or came back to Christ because I know you are a proud mother right now. I can see it, and that's a good story, and people should know. We have a couple comments. The software has a hard time integrating the comments, but we have Jennifer. If you're still on the line, um, the stats on how many voters are actually showing up. She asked a question: do you have all the stats on how many voters are actually showing up? Um, so the crux of the pro 836 people are saying that, um, having an open primary will allow more people to participate, which is wrong because what they're really saying is that open primaries will allow more independents to participate. And what do I say when we go out, Oklahoma? If you want to participate in a Republican primary, what's the one thing you need to do, Wendy?
Sign up as a Republican.
Exactly.
And if you
Exactly.
don't, you are disenfranchising yourself because that is
Exactly.
the law in this state. And if you want to join and participate in our party, you can join. We can't stop you. Switch your party affiliation to Republican.
That's the one thing you can do.
Change our
It's
mind. Not going to happen, but try to.
that is an
That's how you
easier
do
thing to do. Well, right. That's an easier thing to do than change the entire political process. change your affiliation. Now, that's what we have to get out when we talk and educate our Republican friends, family, and neighbors. Marcus Hill commented that Charlie Kirk showed a lot of us how to properly debate without emotional attachment to the subject matter. He did, right?
Yes. Yes, he did. And he was right. I mean, he went out there every day and he told people, and I've seen him do this in some of these reels and videos going around. Actually, my mother is 86 years old, and my mother would watch his show. And when he would tell them, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line, come to the front of the line. And people did. And he was brilliant and teaching civil debate. And regardless of his, like you said, his faith always came first. And we know, our Bible tells us, Rashar, you're going to be persecuted for your faith. And, Charlie Kirk was like, bring it on, kind of. So, we have to remember that that is our first and foremost job in this world as a Christian. And Charlie Kirk showed that. He showed that. He did it. He knew the risks. He took it, and I admire him for everything that he did. Even if I didn't follow him, I have friends that were so deeply affected by the situation last week and continue to be, that's a testament to me of how effective he was.
Yeah.
And then plus, like we talked about, my own son. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking that as we progress into the election cycle, that we invite the promoters of 836 to a town hall event, and let's have it both
Sure.
sides. Let's just have a conversation where everyone can hear both sides of the conversation and the pros and cons.
Yes.
We're not here. Look. I know the promoters. I know they're nice folks, but I disagree with what they want to do to the state of Oklahoma, and that would be a better way of educating the constituents, and I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem with that, since what the Pat McFerrin came on the show on the CCGOP, the Cleveland County GOP discussion several months back, and he is a stand-up guy. This I just disagree with him on open primaries. That might be a possibility that we should look into and have open debates, because what's the one thing I say to all the clients that are running for office, all the candidates running for office? Do what Trump did, do what I do, get in front and get in the middle of the lion's den, because you never know whose mind you can change. And Donald Trump was a big promoter. We watched him go and talk in hostile crowds, but he won them over, and he won them over. And so don't be afraid to have that conversation. I just don't want, and we shouldn't, and where we're at now is that if you disagree with me, you take it personally. I've been called Nazi. We've been called Nazis. I've been called Nazis. There were articles written about me being a fascist. And when you have mentally ill individuals who hear the term Nazis and fascists, we're doing the world a good by getting rid of Nazis, right? We fought World War II. We won. We got rid of Nazis. And so we have to change the tenor, and we have to hold those responsible for the words they use against their opponents. And I would say the same goes for Republicans. Now, we don't do that, obviously. We don't. And but I would like the other side to have open dialogue, and I know some Democrats that do. They definitely have open dialogue, and that's in Oklahoma we don't have that problem, but we have a university here that might have individuals with an issue with the perception of the political parties and who's involved. Wendi, I want to thank you. We're at the 30-minute mark, and I'll be in DC next week. There's a lot going on, and maybe we can do a roundabout with what's happened and what the buzz is. And I want to thank you for showing up again tonight. It's nice to have you back on. It seems like I miss my friend. It's like,
Well,
you
thank
know,
you, Rashard, for inviting me. Well, we were waiting on this Supreme Court decision, and there were, you don't want to schedule presentations if you think you're going to be wasting your time. But here's the thing. We had people that wanted to hear about this regardless of how it turned out.
exactly. And
Now we're
look,
going to be talking about it for another year.
We're semi narcissists. We like to hear our voices out there. Some
I
more
don't
than
have
others.
that problem. I would, never mind.
All right, the great Wendi, not Montgomery Dial, back in the house. And I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. We will be back, and let's make this a normal thing. We do this a lot. So enjoy the night, enjoy the peace, and God bless America.
God bless America. Oh, and Rashard, we did not do this on purpose. Show your mag.
Oh, so look, this is something that we started, and the Trump mug.
Yeah.
One of my favorite mugs.
Same wavelength.
All right. Thank you,
Good night,
guys.
Rashard.